Hi everybody, welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. I feel like something happened on Sunday. There were a number of interesting events that all coincided on that day, and I don't know if they're related. I don't know what it means, but I do have a few ideas and some things to consider. So we're going to take it step by step. The first one is that Community of Christ elected their new prophet president, Stassi D. Cramm. This is her right here. I was just in the right place at the right time. My wife and I went over to the Community of Christ temple because right now there's the Canadian wildfire smoke in the air, and I thought it'd be a good sunset picture. And then later in the night, there was going to be the Aurora, and we just happened to be there at a time. This was right after they ordained her the new prophet president, and we were in the temple plaza right here. It was like completely empty, but we were watching it on the screen. And as they finished up that meeting, they came pouring out of the auditorium and they crossed the street, and I was able to document the entire thing. And as time went on, I kind of went deeper and deeper into the crowd, and I got some really good footage of her. This is some of it right here. There was a line of people to, congratulate her. My wife and I congratulated her. Of course, we wouldn't accept her as a true prophet, but she seems like a nice person, and we should respect other religions. And I would just ask you, by the way, since we're going to be talking about Community of Christ, please don't leave any derogatory comments about them. Please be Christ-like. The church recently has really been reaching out to other religions and building bridges and cooperating. And that doesn't mean that we compromise on doctrine, but she seems nice. Everybody that I've met so far from Community of Christ seems nice. So anyway, it was just a great opportunity, and I hope that she does lead her church well. This is my new channel, by the way. If you didn't know, I created a new channel called Explore Church Sites. There's no commentary in these videos. They're just video tours of sites that are significant to the church. In this case, we have a little bit of an interest in Community of Christ because they're a splinter group, and they have some of the temple land that we would need for the New Jerusalem. And I should give you that context before I continue with Stassi D. Cramm. The reason why I'm interested in Community of Christ is we have these shared roots, or this shared history. But on top of that, it seems like this is still the plan for the New Jerusalem whenever the city is built. A lot of people focus on the temple lot, which is owned by the other church. They're called Church of Christ Temple Lot. And I believe it's this temple right here. This is the lot that they own. But as you can see, there's supposed to be 24 temples. And Community of Christ seems to own this area over here, as well as possibly down here where the auditorium is. If we go over to this satellite image, so this would be temple number 11. And so I think that all of this would be needed for the 24 temple complex. So this is something that I think about as we see a leadership change. It seems like Community of Christ over time has kind of drifted from their original beliefs, or that's probably not how they view it. They've progressed in their eyes, or they're receiving continuing revelation for their church. And I just wonder if the day may come where they sell this land to us, because it seems like they're going in a different direction. I could be wrong, but I'm not so sure that they necessarily care that much anymore about Independence, Missouri. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you know more, put it in the comments below. But they've been having some issues with financing their operation. That's why they sold us the Kirtland Temple. And I just wonder if within our lifetime, maybe within a few years, if they might consider selling this land. We'll just have to wait and see. So anyway, yeah, make sure to check out my new channel. I'll put a link for it in the description box below. I would especially encourage you to watch this video. This was fascinating. And then I have another video on the same channel that's of the inside of the temple. This is on the first day of their World Conference, which started last Friday. Okay, so Stassi D. Cramm. So we've had a pretty dramatic leadership change with Community of Christ. This comes after just a couple months from the time that the Catholic Church had a change in leadership. It used to be Pope Francis, he passed away, and now it's Pope Leo the 17th. So it's just interesting that these two changes in leadership have occurred so close to each other. Okay. Now, I mentioned the Canadian wildfire smoke. So that event began on the first day of their World Conference, which goes from last Friday to this Friday. It's not just a 2-day event like it is in our church. It goes for a little over a week. So you had this Canadian wildfire smoke that's been pouring into the U.S., and this picture doesn't do it justice. This is a picture taken from the temple lot, but the sun was pretty red. On that day, I was mowing my backyard, and I noticed that it wasn't just a typical sunset. I looked up and I could tell that it was probably smoke that was making the sun red. And so we came over here, I took this picture, and then it's continued. I'm not so sure about today. I guess I'd have to go and check outside. I'm recording this on the 2nd. But Stassi D. Cramm was ordained on the 1st, on Sunday, and this is what it looked like on Sunday. So here's a picture from a different day. So you still had this Canadian wildfire smoke that was making the sun turn a red color, or you could say it darkened the sun to where you could actually just look at it with the naked eye. So I thought that was really interesting. Let's look at this Newsweek article called "Smoke from Canadian Wildfires Reaches Gulf Coast." Okay, let me zoom in. Smoke from wildfires currently burning in Canada reached the Gulf Coast in the southern United States this week. The smoke doesn't look like it will clear the U.S. anytime soon. National Weather Service Weather Prediction Center meteorologist Joe Wegman told Newsweek, although the heaviest smoke has stayed north of the coast, so it's unlikely that air quality alerts will be issued that far south. This is the first time excessive Canadian wildfire smoke had descended into the U.S. since 2023, when wildfires worsened air quality to dangerous levels for millions in the Northeast. Yeah, that was a big event in my eyes in 2023. I covered it on the channel. At that time, I was trying to keep track of things on Google Earth. I still have this saved, thankfully. Back in 2023, this is roughly the area that the Canadian wildfire smoke covered. I had noticed that it had shown up over a lot of state capitals and country capitals, okay, including Salt Lake City and Kansas City. And it went all the way across the ocean, and it covered the skies over Madrid and Lisbon, Portugal. So this is what I was able to track based off of articles that I found, but it was a major event. 2023 was kind of a big year for wildfires. This is a spreadsheet called Signs Wildfires Chart. It's based on another spreadsheet that I have where I'm tracking the largest or deadliest or most destructive wildfires, and I'm tallying them up by year. And this is what I have so far. If you just tally them up by year, 2023 had the most of these like record-breaking wildfire events. So here's 2023 right here with 8 of them. So when I heard that Canadian wildfire smoke was coming down into the U.S., it made me wonder, are we going to have something similar this year? Is this going to be a big wildfire year? And it may or may not, but it actually started out with wildfires in January. On January 7th, you had the Pacific Palisades fire that broke out in that neighborhood of Los Angeles, and it was the most destructive wildfire in that area, so I added it to my spreadsheet. Here's a picture of the Los Angeles, California temple. This is not the Pacific Palisades fire. This was I think the Hollywood Hills fire, which didn't cause too much damage, but it's just an amazing photo that was sent to me. But we had this year, again, on the 7th of January, so just 7 days before President Nelson's 7-year anniversary on January 14th. And then Israel, let's see, on its Memorial Day, there was a wildfire that broke out that had, I think it's probably over at this point. I haven't seen any news, but it turned out to be Israel's largest wildfire in that country's history. It started on Memorial Day, and just a day before Israel's 77th birthday on the Hebrew calendar. So again, 77, there's just so many sevens that we talk about on this channel, and we know that it's an important number in Judaism as well. And so it's just interesting that they have their largest wildfire in the country's history during their 77th birthday. So we've already had 2 notable wildfires, and both of these were record-breaking. This one the most destructive. This one in Israel, the largest in the country's history. Okay, so we'll have to see how the rest of the year goes. But again, on the day that Stassi D. Cramm is ordained the prophet president of Community of Christ, you have this event going on that's darkening the skies over independence. And I'm not like condemning their church. This could be a sign for us. It could be a sign that, well, give it a year, 5 years, 10 years. Maybe at that point they're going to part with the land that they have there and sell it to the church, or maybe something else will happen. I don't know. So I'm not saying that it's a bad sign for Community of Christ or anything negative against them, but it's something to think about. Okay, now on the same day that she was, let's see, sorry, hold on. Yeah, right here, June 1st. On the same day that she was ordained prophet president of Community of Christ, and as the Canadian wildfire smoke is pouring into the U.S., we have this geomagnetic storm which caused the aurora to be seen as far south as the Gulf Coast. Most of California, about half of Texas. This doesn't seem to have been as dramatic of an event as last year. Last year, you may recall, there were 2 times that you could see the aurora in places that you typically couldn't see it. This is a picture that I took back in May of 2024. This is from south central Kansas because that's where I was living at the time, about an hour south of Wichita. And I never in my life thought that I would see the aurora in the first place, let alone in south central Kansas. But I did. And so I have other pictures that I took of it, but this is one. Okay. And by the way, it's interesting to note that this happened, the aurora happened a month after the Kirtland Temple was sold by Community of Christ to the church. Okay, so temple that they used to own, and then a month later we see the aurora, an unlikely aurora event. And not only that, but the same month that they sold they sold it in March. Okay, sorry. This is how it went. They sold it in March, and then a month later, you had the total solar eclipse, the path of totality of which went over the Kirtland Temple, and I was there for that. I took a video of it. So that was already incredible enough. And then 2 months after the sale, that's when you could see the aurora across the United States. So is there a connection between auroras and temples? Well, I have something else to show you. Now, this is a picture from October. It turns out that we got a second round of the same type of event, only this time on the other side of the year in October. This is a picture that I took from south central Kansas. And then these are a couple of pictures of the Kirtland Temple with the aurora above it. These come from my friend Jessica with Higher Holier History. Make sure to subscribe to her. She took this one, and her friend Tracy Hewlett took this one. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting. Community of Christ owned this for such a long time. And then finally they sell it to us. And then there's an eclipse and the path of totality goes over the Kirtland Temple. And then after that, there's an aurora that you can see from the Kirtland Temple. It's just really interesting. Okay. And then speaking of temples and auroras, don't forget this. If we go to my spreadsheet called Signs, Church Specific, there, I don't know if this was the same intensity as what we've seen this last year or two, but on April 6th of the year 2000, so on Christ's birthday, the year 2000, that's when they dedicated the Palmyra, New York temple. And it just so happened that on that day, there was an event called the Great Aurora and Geomagnetic Storm of 2000, April 6th to 7th. You can read about that in this paper right here. You can access my spreadsheets anytime. The link is in the description box of each video. But here you have another aurora associated with a significant temple. So you can see why something may have happened on Sunday. Maybe her presidency is going to lead to something like this, like selling us this land that we need for the city of New Jerusalem. I don't know. Okay, where was I here? Before we move on, just a couple things about the Palmyra, New York temple. This is on my spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z, currently row 417 for Palmyra, New York temple. And President Hinckley said, I regard this temple as perhaps the most significant in one respect in the entire church. It was right here in the sacred grove where it all began. So that's a really interesting quote. We have this one. This is from President Hinckley. And this is actually, let's see. This is an article in the May 2000 Ensign, 7 Temples Dedicated. And it says, the Palmyra dedication came on the date marking the 2000th anniversary of the Savior's birth. Or in other words, the day that he would have turned 2,000 years old. So it just so happens that on that day, there's this huge aurora event as the temple is being dedicated. Or like after the temple was dedicated. Okay, and then I think there was one other thing here. Oh yeah, this is from Church News, February 20th, 1999. The announcement of the Palmyra, New York temple brings to 100 the number of temples in operation, under construction, or in planning stages worldwide. So it was the 100th temple to be announced. It's a pretty special temple. So, but anyway, the Aurora. Okay? Canadian wildfire smoke, the Aurora, and then it turns out that Sunday, if we go to the Hebrew calendar, this is hebcal.com, Sunday, after sundown, the Jewish holiday, feast day, whatever you want to call it, of Pentecost, or Shavuot, or the Feast of Weeks, started. Okay, their days start at sundown. So the evening of Sunday the 1st, that's when Shavuot or Pentecost began. And it seems like these days still have significance in this dispensation, as in special things can happen during these days. So for example, Elijah and Moses and Elias and Christ, they appeared in the Kirtland Temple on first fruits, which in that year, first fruits was also on Easter. They're not always on the same day. Sometimes they're on different days, but sometimes they coincide. And in that particular year, they were on the same day. Also, you probably already know this, especially if you've been watching my channel. Joseph Smith received the gold plates on Rosh Hashanah, otherwise known as the Feast of Trumpets. And then the years leading up to him receiving the gold plates, he was supposed to meet with the angel Moroni on the same day each year for several years. And each one of those years, except for one, I think it was 18 26. That's the only one that it wasn't a Jewish feast day. But all the other years, he met with the angel Moroni during a Jewish feast day. So he got the gold plates on Rosh Hashanah, but he met with the angel Moroni on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, also Yom Kippur, also the second day of the Feast of Tabernacles, and then also on another time on Rosh Hashanah. So this is another thing that took place on Sunday. Okay, so new leader of Community of Christ, Canadian wildfire smoke, the Aurora. It was the beginning of Pentecost. And then this is the last one. I don't know if you heard about this. This is Newsweek. Russia's Pearl Harbor. Ukraine surprise drone attack hits nuclear bombers. A surprise Ukrainian drone attack is being described as Russia's Pearl Harbor by some commentators online after 41 military aircraft were hit on Sunday. Now, I haven't looked into this too closely because I don't know if this is just like making headlines and it's just kind of, we're in the moment. Is this really as big and bad as it sounds? I don't know. Is it going to lead to some further, big action, some kind of revenge attack? I don't know. But if this balloons into something bigger, if this was like a turning point in the war, well, let's just note it happened on June 1st, the same day that all these other things are happening. So, and then the last thing to consider, this is not something that happened on June 1st, but it's happening a week later. President Nelson is going to dedicate the Syracuse, Utah temple on June 8th. And I may have to look into this further. There may be more to the Syracuse, Utah temple, but the one thing that I will point out is that President Nelson has not dedicated very many temples. This is my spreadsheet called Timeline Temples. I actually need to update it, but let me just point out a couple things here. So, as president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, he dedicated the Sapporo, Japan temple. Let me zoom in so you can see it a little bit easier. Okay. Russell Nelson, Sapporo, Japan temple. Then he becomes president of the church. And the first temple that he dedicates is the Concepcion, Chile temple. And then the Rome, Italy temple. After that, see, this is the part that I need to update. He dedicated the Deseret Peak, Utah temple. And I think he did that because that was the 200th temple to be put into operation in the church. So it was a milestone. So he dedicated it. And then I think that's it. He also rededicated the Manti, Utah temple in a surprise appearance. It was supposed to be Elder Razban, but President Nelson showed up and he ended up rededicating it. So all these other temples, they've been dedicated by, the various members of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, as well as the First Presidency. Before President Nelson's time, any temple that was dedicated, it was almost exclusively dedicated by either a member of the First Presidency, if we're looking at this column right here, a member of the First Presidency, or on rare occasions, the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. So this was a big change when President Nelson became president of the church. But it has to be this way because he can't dedicate all these temples that he himself has announced. He's announced so many temples, and there were a lot in the pipeline anyway. But it makes sense that he opened that up to the rest of the brethren. So at this point, I'm pretty sure every member of the Quorum of the 12 and First Presidency has dedicated a temple. Okay, so that's happening a week after this Sunday that we're talking about right now. So, I don't know. Is there anything else that you know of that took place on Sunday? Let me know in the comments below. After this, like I said, I would encourage you to check out these videos that I took. of Community of Christ, just to learn a little bit more about them. We are a radically different church, even though we have shared roots, but it's good to know about them, build bridges, and it's just interesting. It is just really, really, really interesting. So, okay, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.